Good morning. We're here with Molly Gimmel, our past national board chair from NAWBO National, and she's going to be our keynote speaker today. Molly has written a book, Master Your Mindset. So we're excited you're here today. Tell us a little bit about you and your company, and how'd you get on the road to NAWBO?
Sure. Happy to be here. Thanks, Leanne. I actually started my company, which is called Design to Delivery, in 2001. We're a government contracting firm. We're based in the DC area. And I had no entrepreneurial experience at all when I started my company and knew nothing about how to really run a company or grow a company. And so when I came across NAWBO about a year later, I figured this was a great opportunity for me to learn how to be a good business owner. And so I got involved in my local chapter in the DC area and served as chapter president, then got involved at the national level, was asked to serve on the PASC, the President's Assembly Steering Committee, served on that for a few years, was chair of that for a year. And about the time that I ended my term on the PASC, my business took off in terms of growth. And so I took a couple years off from really doing anything for NAWBO. I mean, I still came to events and came to the national conference and participated in my chapter events every now and then, but I was really focused on growing my business. And then after a few years of that, things calmed down a bit, and I decided to apply to be on the national board. So I joined the national board in 2014.
So as you traveled around the NAWBO national arena, you met some wonderful women. How did that lead to Master Your Mindset?
Well, I was on the national board for 6 years, and one of the things that I found really interesting as I was interacting with chapter leaders from around the country was that there would be chapters that would be, growing and thriving and doing great stuff, and then other chapters that would be struggling. And a couple years later, the reverse would happen. The chapter that had been growing and thriving was now struggling. Chapter that was struggling was now thriving. And when you looked at the reasons behind what had changed, it was always leadership. Whoever the chapter leaders were, the chapter president and the chapter board members, really set the tone for the chapter as a whole. And if you had a strong leadership team at the chapter level, then the chapter would be thriving. And if not, then not. And so when my term on the national board ended in 2020, right as the pandemic was starting, and my time completely freed up because I no longer had all my board responsibilities and I no longer had a social life because you couldn't go out and do anything. I was like, well, maybe I'll write a book. So that's how it came about.
Okay, just give us a couple snippets about what you learned when you were writing this book and interviewing the amazing women.
Sure. So what I decided to do was, given what I had seen within NAWBO and all the chapters and interacting with all the different business owners, was that, as I said, leadership is so important. So I started thinking about, what makes somebody an effective leader? And I came up with a list of about 24 attributes that I think are important for people to work on in order to be more effective leaders. And I divided them into two groups, one being mindsets and one being skills. And so I reached out to about 30 different women that I knew, many through NAWBO, others through organizations in my community, and some I didn't know at all. Some I just asked friends, hey, do you know somebody interesting that I should interview? And so I gave them the list and I said, pick 2 or 3 of these in each category, mindsets and skills, and let's just talk about them. And they would share their stories that had to do with that mindset or skill and just tell me what they thought about it. And I recorded that. And so when I was writing the book, originally it was supposed to be in 2 parts, the first part being mindsets, the second part being skills. And as I started writing it, I realized I had bitten off more than I could chew. So I was like, okay, maybe this is 2 books. So the first book is the mindset book. And then the second book, which will come out sometime in hopefully the near future, will be the skill book. There's 13 mindsets, and each one has its own chapter. And for each chapter, I talk about my own story with that mindset. I talk about what the mindset is, why it's important to leadership. And then I weave in the stories that were told to me by the women that I interviewed or the insights that they shared with me.
For the people listening today, how can they get a copy?
Amazon or bn.com or bookshop.org or any of the online platforms. Mm-hmm.
Okay, one word of advice on somebody I think I would like NAWBO. Tell us one key point that you would want to reiterate about NAWBO.
I've gotten so much from NAWBO from the last 22 years now. I'd say education and community are the 2 big things. So I've learned so much from all the workshops and events and speakers and other activities that I've participated in through NAWBO. I've learned so much about growing my business and being a good business owner, running my business and how to have employees and all the things. But also having a community of other women business owners has been incredibly valuable.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We're looking
Absolutely.
forward to hearing from you a little later.
Happy to be here.